Hello, everybody. We're back. It's Truth or Skepticism. It's 1 p.m. on Wednesday. Dylan Radigan, how are you today?
I'm very good. I've been watching the news, and it's brought a number of things to my mind. I'm almost chomping at the bit.
I don't know whether to believe you or not. I wrote a cherry bomb over the weekend talking about one of the great things that I feel one of the great things about Tasty is that we've learned how to separate the quote news/noise that's out there so that it doesn't get to us, and we look at it as opportunity rather than as a measure of fear. And I think that's one of the cool characteristics of being a Tasty trader is that you can, all the rhetoric, all the hypocrisy, all the nonsense that takes place every single day, you can look at it almost as a joke, like, as rather than having to worry about taking it seriously. And because that's what trading by, with kind of numbers does for you, as opposed to, worrying about fundamentals. But you're gonna take
No. And I read that cherry bomb. I know we're going to go in a slightly different direction here today, I think, but
okay.
I read that, and and it's interesting because it's sort of like there's a little bit of ego in that, maybe even a lot of ego in that, where it's like, I'm so good. I figured something out such that the rest of you fools are left with your foolish behaviors.
No, only non-Tasty traders.
Right. The non-Tasty traders is a room of fools.
Yes.
And the Tasty traders have an ego that they are superior in some way.
They are. Yes.
And I'm in no position to dispute that. I find
we've created a superior race. It's never been done before, but we've actually done it. We've created mutant Tasty traders. We are, yes.
Again, I feel like I'm in no position to dispute your claims. I don't have evidence to back up any rebuttal, but I will say that your claims are quite extraordinary, exceptional. But that's for another day. Couple things caught my eye this week. One, and you really brought this up in a conversation we had a few months ago, the return of labor really delivering the goods relative to his historicals as it relates to the UAW, with the final UAW deal getting done earlier this week and all these things, up to the point where now Tesla stock, I think it was on Monday, was down, 8 or 9, 10%, even. Like, it was down a bunch on concern that the unions are so strong with the big three that they're actually may have leverage with Tesla. Not that I'd necessarily want to go into a huge conversation about the automakers per se, but I do think that your original point, which was when labor is this strong, typically it means the economy is relatively strong. The jobs market is, like, in other words, you need leverage to get anything done on the union side. And we're seeing a lot get done on the union side with relative to the automakers. Another thing that struck my attention was Meta, the Facebook and Instagram parent, offering, apparently only in Europe for the moment, maybe because of something with the EU regulator, but I didn't get too deep into it. But Meta offering in Europe a subscription model as opposed to an ad model that might even be a subscription model. So if you want to scroll through Instagram, you want to scroll through Facebook, you want to scroll through whatever, you've got to pay if Meta owns it, theoretically, you've got to pay a subscriber fee to have an ad-free, and I would presume, although this is probably a massive assumption, less data collection, right? Basically, subscription truly arrives, at least partially, with some of the biggest names in social media in the form of the Meta subscription in Europe, and whether that's an inflection of any kind. And then we can go down the list from there, because I guess the third really big thing that's on my radar for this week was the apparent semi-return of crypto. I mean, return is a strong, but a little Bitcoin bump, if you will. and then also the fact that apparently the SBF trial will go to a jury potentially as soon as Friday of this week. So you can start wherever you like, but that's kind of that's what's been percolating in my head. Labor, cars, subscriptions, social media, crypto, and my good friend Sam.
Okay, well, let's start. Let's just attack in that order. First of all, labor. So there is no question anywhere that, I don't think anybody would question that the leverage is, we've talked about this at length, that the leverage is back on the side of labor. But what does that really mean? Like, is
Well, it
Tesla,
meant 10% came off of Tesla's stock earlier this week.
um, but, but, but I don't know if that's really what that is. Like, I don't know if that's like,
Fair enough. No, fair enough. I understand
yeah,
what you're saying.
I don't, I mean, that's just somebody drawing a, kind
An
of a,
inference between two
yeah,
facts.
yeah, I think so. I mean, the idea that labor has had the leverages with labor isn't something that's new. I mean, labor has owned the leverage now for pretty much, the lion's share of 2023.
For
I
sure.
I think the Tesla situation may be something, completely different. So I don't know if that's what that is. But the other side to it is, so is that a bad thing? I mean, like, to me, it's not a
Oh,
bad
I don't
thing.
think so. I
Yeah,
think it's a very good thing.
yeah,
And
me
I even
too.
think that if the labor, because I do believe that the success and the efficacy of the unions with the big three is relevant to Tesla, who has, you know, avoided the UAW up to this point. But I think it's an indication of economic strength. And I think it's an indication of potential. I mean, this is, I don't even want to say it, but it's on the margins. It's a little bit more money for labor. I won't say that it's a redistribution in any meaningful way, but at least it's an incremental change in their favor.
I mean, one person has no chance, has no power, has no say. But as you can see, you know, when the unions bark, everybody jumps. And when the leverage is on their side, you have to make a deal. And we've seen it with the airlines and the pilots and the flight attendants. We've seen it now with, the automakers. We've seen it in a variety of different industries.
We saw it with
And
the writers, and
yeah,
the actors are still on strike, by the way.
yeah, yeah. And to me, this is all really fascinating. And I'm all for it. I'm on the side of, I'm 100% on the side of labor.
Do you view it as a macroeconomic indication of a favorable economic indication, or is it really more the
Yeah.
aging of the boomers? Is it more of a demographic indication?
No, I view it as as a measure of economic strength. I think it's a very positive. I think it's a very positive sign. I think it's I don't see a lot of negatives to it. Listen, labor, you know, I'm never on the side of management, even though I am management. I am never on the side of management. I'm always on the side of labor. I'm always on the side of the players in sports, and they got to get whatever they can get. And I'm always on the side of labor
The
in
writers, the actors,
situations.
the
Of
flight
course,
attendants, the
of
nurses, the
course,
teachers, the da, da,
of
da, da, da.
course. Get what you can, because these companies, they don't care about you. They really don't.
Of course. No, no, for sure. That's true.
Yeah, I mean, ask they
Yeah,
just don't care. So
yeah.
it's time to, you got to get what you, that's why when, like, some baseball player, some football player gets a 200 million dollar contract, of which 150 million is guaranteed. I'm like, great, good for you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care. I'm a fan. Give a crap.
Do you, by the way, on non sequitur, but just speaking of fans and sports, that maybe that gets me a little bit close to it. Do you think that Taylor Swift's absence in Denver was the reason for the loss?
Of course,
Yeah.
100%.
I was going to make sure we're in agreement on that
Yeah,
particular issue.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
she
yeah.
might have to delay the Eras tour if they really want to.
The problem is, like most people, like, a billionaire that owns a billionaire owner of a football team like the Kansas City Chiefs, the Hunt family, they can basically, like if they said, we need you to stay here for a day, Dylan Radigan, you'd be over there for a day, no matter what.
Sure.
They write the check.
Yeah.
She says, I buy you.
Yeah. Yeah. She's a billionaire. She's like, what are you talking about?
Billionaire, yeah, but she's worse than a billionaire because she's a billionaire with a credit line. Like
she's a billionaire with a credit line and literally an audience of billions of people.
Right. She's a billionaire that hasn't even touched on her value.
Yeah,
like she hasn't even scratched the surface of her value.
Exactly.
In fact, I don't know if there's another person right now in the whole world that you could point to that you would buy if you wanted to buy their future earnings more so than her.
I could listen. You and I are not this. There's a lot of truth here. There's going to be no skepticism.
Yeah.
When it comes to Taylor Swift, and she's clearly responsible for the Chiefs' loss this weekend.
Yeah, but if you wanted to buy her upside right now, I mean, you'd have to pay $1 billion just to have a piece of the upside.
You'd have to pay $1 billion to get 1%, 2%.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what her upside is, but it's some number that nobody's even. It's, she's going to be up there with the richest people ever in the history of entertainment. Yeah. She will be the richest.
Yeah,
she'll overtake Oprah. I don't know who is the richest. I don't know. Oprah.
I mean, it depends how you define entertainment, but it's either Oprah or Jordan, probably.
Jordan sports.
But that sports is entertainment.
Yeah, I guess. But
I mean, if Oprah's entertainment, I would rather watch Michael Jordan than Oprah. And I believe
she's going to blow both those guys out of the water.
Yeah. Blow them out of the water. Agreed.
Yeah.
But there's no futures. So, are you done with labor?
Yeah, only because to me it's almost a non-starter. I have to be, I have to be on the side of labor 1,000%. There is no other side for me.
And you view it as basically a self-evident fact.
Yeah, I view it as a self-evident fact. I view it as as a very important part of the economic cycle. Labor has to have its moments because if it doesn't, okay, there's nothing to believe in.
Mm-hmm.
You're always just working for the man. You're always, you're beaten down. You're working for the man. You're beaten down. You're working for the man. There has to be those moments where, you get your voice heard in some capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So it has to happen to keep everybody honest.
Speaking of working for the man, how do you interpret the experimentation by Meta with a subscription as opposed to being a data harvester and an ad seller?
Well, that's interesting because that can come back and haunt you. So the dangerous thing about that is that all of a sudden you have exposed, okay, so when I don't really use Facebook at all, but I do have a Facebook account. I just don't log on very often.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But just like any other social media platform, when you log on, you don't think of it. Like if I go to TikTok, I don't think of it as a social media platform. I don't think of it as a social network. When I go to Facebook, which is really rare, I go to Instagram, which is less rare. Okay. Mm-hmm. I never think of it as a social network.
It's like an alternative to watching television.
Exactly. That's what that is.
Like a time killer.
It's exactly how I think. So the difference is when you offer a subscription, all of a sudden I'm thinking, why are they offering me a subscription? I get this for free. Like I never thought about.
Remember, the Europeans are the ones that have been at the forefront of the whole thing, where they're saying, "Oh, with data protection, right to privacy." Like the European regulators, the backstory, and so I'm sure the reason why Meta is experimenting with a subscriber model in Europe only is entirely driven by the regulatory relationship, not necessarily a board strategy.
Well, the regulatory relationship
is speculation on my part, but.
Yeah, and the regulatory relationship's another problem. The regulatory relationships are just a very interesting way of various governments and regulatory bodies. Just to me, it's just all a money grab. So, hey, if you don't want to pay your taxes, we'll get you this way.
This is the stick-up culture. You're saying it's just another.
It is a stick up culture. We live in a stick up culture. But I think you get to a I think the message that you can get, Facebook ad free is like, what do you mean? I wasn't paying for it to start with, like
In other words, by offering the subscription, it's in some ways it's an indication of something that it's a reminder that basically you're like, hang on a second, I didn't even realize that this thing had a fee associated. In
exactly.
other words, because you don't perceive the fee of your data harvest or the ad service or any of that jazz.
Yeah, it's kind of like you sit down at a poker table and you're playing poker. You're like, how does the casino make money after you've been playing for 2 hours? And then somebody says, well, for the last 2 hours, they've been taking a little piece of every single pie. Every single pot, they grab a piece. And they've been raking the table on every single pot. You're like, oh, I didn't even notice that. But
which
now,
is data and ads. And now all of a sudden, if you're like, no, you got to pay every time you play a round of poker, you got to pay your subscriber fee.
Yeah, it's the same kind of concept.
What a flipping it. In other words, do you think people care about their data?
I think people care, but they don't know why they care.
They care, just you're saying instinctively for no apparent reason.
Because if you ask me if I care about something, I'm going to say, hell yeah, I care about that, even though I'm like, what is that?
Right. In other words, it's just a primitive emotional response. It's not a thoughtful.
Of course, if you walk up to a stranger
response
and say, do you care about that something, whatever it is, you're going to say,
I've run into plenty of people who actually like the data where they're like, yeah, when they collect my data, the algorithm gets better and they feed me better content or better shopping or better whatever, things that I like because they collect my data. They do a better job of giving me what I want because they collect my data.
TikTok is the best at it. Somehow they give me everything I want, and because they know what I like, and I don't know how they know what I like, but they just know what I like.
Right, but they know what you like because of the speed at which the number of milliseconds you spend So the more time you spend watching something.
Yeah, I got it. I know. Anyway. They do it. It's just like
what it's amazing. I agree with you. It's like magic. What about the other side of it of actually creating subscribers, a subscriber pool where the individuals, do you think there's a world where the social media users could effectively unionize and sell their data back to the social media companies as a subscription the other way, where no one person can sell their data back to Facebook? But if a billion people said, no, I mean, how you do that, I don't know. But
I don't know either, but it's interesting. Yeah.
That'd be a good place for a union, the union of social media users.
Yeah.
The data union.
Yeah. It's really interesting, really fascinating. I never really thought about it until we do this show, until we do this podcast. I'm like, I just didn't think of that. But, yeah, I thought about the other stuff that we talked about. I thought about, hey, if you don't know it's there, like, why are you bringing this up and why are you making this into, because all of a sudden,
are you telling everybody that you're raking the table quietly?
Exactly. Why are you doing this? Because nobody knows. The reason everybody uses you because they think it's free. I don't know.
And now that you're telling them that it's a thing, I mean, can you imagine how much the algorithm would imagine if there was a viral campaign to create a social media users data union? The algorithm would crush that thing. That would talk about something that wouldn't get boosted in the system.
It's kind of amazing. Yeah. I'm not sure. I never really think about this stuff because I try to avoid. I'm pretty much only on one social network, TikTok. Occasionally I'll go on Instagram, but I'm pretty much a one-trick pony.
If there was a TikTok users data union, would you be a member?
I don't know.
Collecting your 3 cents a day for your data, your 1.5 cents a day, probably some sad little number.
A really good question.
All right, onward. Sam Bankman-Fried was on the stand today, or earlier this week. Sorry. theoretically, this thing goes to a jury as soon as the end of this week. Bitcoin's had one of its best go rounds in months here the past couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Any correlation in sort of the completion of the fraud trial? I mean, both are they related or not? Both topics are of interest to me, related or not.
So what are you asking?
Well, I'm asking you, one, why is Bitcoin up? And two, is Bitcoin surge? Does Bitcoin surge have anything to do with the trial?
Um,
And three, does the return of some, some fancy headline movement in Bitcoin mark any evidence of the end of the winter of doom in the crypto world?
okay, so for starters, if I told you what the outcome of the Sam Bankman-Fried trial was and said, would you want to buy or sell Bitcoin here? You would have no idea what that means to Bitcoin. Nobody would. I don't think that's the reason Bitcoin's up, because I think that the Sam Bankman-Fried trial is all that's already priced in. I think that's a non-event. So no, I don't think that's the reason. If you're asking me why Bitcoin's up, that's a little more interesting. And it's probably, I would say a couple things. And I know one of these is going to seem really basic, which is supply is really light. People that have held Bitcoin for that entire down move in Bitcoin, they've really sucked it up and held Bitcoin. They're not getting out. So the offers are thin. And there's not a lot of Bitcoin for sale. The offers are thin. One of the reasons this has gone up is because the offers are thin. If I think about the only other answer, which I think is too public, is that it's a flight to quality, which I don't buy it. I don't think that's the case.
Flight to quality within the crypto universe, you mean?
Flight to quality within the crypto universe, flight to quality within global secure. I mean, the dollar's been people are sick of buying dollars, right? Because they just hate buying dollars. And the dollar continues to go higher, and every other currency is going lower. And I think that people are just they're puking some currencies, and I think that when you puke currencies to buy dollar, I think some people are buying Bitcoin instead.
Is everything that's true for Bitcoin also true for Ethereum, or is Bitcoin separate from all the rest of them?
It's separate from all the rest of them.
Why?
It's just first to market. It's been on its own vision, its own mission. It's a different animal. ETH has not participated at all compared to.
No, I saw that. Why do you think that is?
It's just it's the evil stepchild.
Would you, if you were going to buy one of the two, would you always buy Bitcoin at this point?
I don't always buy Bitcoin. In fact, I tried to buy ETH today and sell Bitcoin and do this pairs trade, but I messed it up. I'll do it tomorrow. I had the ratio wrong. Personally, no. Usually when I load the boat, I load it with ETH, but we'll see.
And is there a reason for that?
No, I'm just stubborn. Once I do something
habitual.
Yeah, it's habitual. I do like the long ETH short Bitcoin trade here. I just don't have it on this afternoon. I had it on today during the day, but I don't have it on this afternoon. I like long being Bitcoin, short ETH. No, what I say?
Long ETH, short Bitcoin.
Yeah, long ETH, short Bitcoin.
You like the pair. I don't know whether you like them or not. You've talked about the pairs trades a lot in the recent months. Whether it's Bond and the Russell, et cetera, et cetera. Have those opinions changed in the like? I know the Russell has just been a very unpleasant. I mean, I don't know I haven't looked in the past couple of days, but in the past month and a half, the Russell was an abomination.
No, none of my opinions have changed.
Because the price levels are the same, or because why haven't they changed? I guess
it's price. So everything's price.
All price.
The whole world's price. It's all price. How does
So even
anything
though it
change?
doesn't matter, to your point, going to your original tasty bomb, which is we're
Yeah,
better than tasty traders are better than everybody else.
yeah, of
Well, the
course.
rest of the world's looking at Hamas and Gaza
Yeah,
or
yeah,
inflation or the
yeah,
Fed
whatever.
or earnings or whatever.
Yeah, of course. Doesn't None of it matters. What are you going to learn from a terrorist? What are you going to learn from gold? What are you going to do? What are you going to learn from whatever the Fed's? Nothing. There's nothing to do.
Other than your point that a price extreme is in the eye of the beholder.
That's right. But that's what trading is. It's in the eye of the beholder. Speculative risk is in the eye of the beholder. Everything else is fair value. I mean,
Right. And tactically, you can do a better job with it by selling puts or picking a high IV or picking a liquid name. In other words, you can extreme is in the eye of the beholder, but regardless of what sits in the eye of the beholder is now gets you into
well, you sure
all
have
the
to believe
strategy.
that. You sure have to believe that is the case. Like if you don't believe that is the case, then you have no leg. There's nothing. There's
Then
nothing.
you're not doing anything.
That's right.
Then you're not doing anything.
That's right.
You think Biden's getting weaker? I'm just sort of moving or jumping around here a little bit, but do you feel like I saw there? I think there was another primary shot. I guess why I bring it up. I feel like Biden might actually never even run again by the time this is over.
It's He has his moments. I feel like he has these moments of um he has his moments not when he's not like Biden does not have what I call non-presidential moments. He just has moments of weakness where he just feels old. Like it just feels like not. I never feel like he's out of touch, and I never feel like he is. I never feel like he's a bad person or that there's something wrong. I just feel like there's moments when this cannot be the best choice that we have. With Trump, I feel very differently. With Trump, I always feel like, oh my God, we are one step away from the end of the world. So a very different, Trump
But
scares.
imagine, well, but here's an interesting thought exercise. May not really matter, but what it goes like this: if the same headline news, a Russian invasion of Ukraine, a Hamas terrorist attack in Israel with a huge retaliation from
Yeah.
Israel, was happening under President Trump, I feel like people would be much more alarmed than they are with it happening under President Biden.
Well, of course, you'd be much more alarmed because Trump, A, doesn't read, and B, isn't able to, process anything like a normal individual. So, I mean, he's a danger to the world. I don't look at Biden as a danger to the world. That's the difference.
And yet the world danger emerged more under the Biden presidency.
Well, not really. I mean, you can look back to all the disasters under Trump as well. I mean, I don't think this.
I'm just talking about the hot wars right now.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's not much you can do, and yeah, this is, yeah. I don't.
Meaning, in other words, you don't blame Biden for the timing of the hot wars.
How
I
could you?
don't blame. I do not blame Biden for the
How
timing of it.
could you? How
No,
could
of
you?
course, yeah, it's preposterous.
Yeah, I mean, they're terrorists. What do you want? What can you say? I mean, I'm not going to. There's nothing. There's nothing. You know, Nothing else about it.
Last week we talked dollar. Dollar hangs in there. Last week we talked oil. Oil actually has come off. I think oil's come back to where it was pre-war.
It's basically when the whole thing started. The Sunday night, the whole Sunday night invasion and everything else, and all the, you know, basically all the bad news you could throw at it. Oil was 82, and we're right back there.
Do you think gold does the same thing ultimately?
I mean, gold has been incredibly strong. I'm not a gold. I don't have any long positions in gold right now. I have a tiny position in silver. I don't have any real precious metals. I'm not sure. Not when I say I'm not sure. I just, for some reason, it just hasn't been that interesting to me. To me, in this market, with all the earnings plays, with the earnings plays, you've got Apple coming, you've got crazy, you've got Apple, Fed, you've got all this stuff just on the table right here, and I kind of feel like I kind of feel like there's so much stuff that where there's so much to do. Precious metals just aren't that interesting to me right here.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned Apple. Other than the obvious, which is it's a giant company, blah blah. Like there's Apple. How relevant is the Apple earnings report? And if I told you what the number was going to be, would you know what to do?
Well, of course not, because every single number has been has been a complete, cluster F. Every single algo on every single earnings report, to me, I should say every single one, but the majority of the algos trying to guess what's going to happen based on the number have been wrong. And that's why you saw, they were wrong in Facebook, they were wrong in Google, they were wrong in Amazon. Um, I, I'm I don't know what I would do if I knew the number for Apple. Like I would not mortgage the house if you just told me the number. Like I
I
wouldn't.
told you, here's the whole Apple earnings report. Go nuts.
Yeah, well, like I said, the algos, which basically take that number and process it the second it comes out and hit every bid or take every offer, have been wrong on almost every trade. So the idea that you would know what to do, it's preposterous.
And so, what's the relevance of the Apple earnings at this point?
Oh, just the inflated and hopefully the inflated implied volatility, which will
deflate on the backside of earnings.
Yeah, exactly. That's it.
Right. It's just an elevated volatility situation.
Yeah, and listen, for some people, Apple is. We had this argument on Sunday night. JJ was like, Apple's trading at 28 times earnings. And so it's overpriced no matter what happens. And other people say, well, the stock's just dropped from 190 to under 170. It's dropped, 10-15%. That's a great buying opportunity. And so if you're directionally inclined, you're going to want to sell puts. If you're bearish, you're going to want to sell calls. But I can easily see people on both sides of the aisle. Apple's the most watched stock, and yet, it's still in play.
Yeah. I continue to hear, this is from Hollywood friends, speculation that Apple will ultimately buy Disney, which personally I think is a terrible decision for Apple. But it's sort of the final, the Disney's a mess. But anyway,
let me turn that question around. Okay. Let's have some fun with this.
Okay.
So you are Tim Cook. We're firing him. Okay. We're getting rid of him. Okay.
Okay.
The new CEO is Dylan Ratigan.
Okay.
Right. You're the CEO of Apple. And now you inherited his war chest, and the board fully supports you. And they say, Dylan Ratigan, you are a pick, you're a man, and we have the biggest war chest in the world. Our war chest is bigger than any country. All right. Go do a deal, buy any damn company you want. $1 trillion almost in cash. Who do you want? Anybody in the world. Doesn't matter. But let's stay with U.S. companies for the argument's sake, because U.S. companies are, we know them. Okay. I don't want some company nobody's ever heard of. It's not public. So public U.S. companies, right? Go buy anybody you want. Are you going to buy Disney? I'm just asking. I don't know the answer. Are you going to buy Disney? If you're Apple, is that the one you're going to? Is that where you're going to?
I don't personally. I'm hesitant to say. I understand the appeal, because if I want growth, and it's basically the same way that Apple played with the car. You could also play with an Apple chip theoretically. An Apple AI chip of some kind could be quite exciting. The content vertical is obviously exciting. My concern with buying, like Amazon didn't buy Disney or a Disney equivalent, or Netflix didn't buy a content company. Like, content is only as good as the culture of the company that's making it at the time. And so a company that has a really good content culture can change over time, right? That Netflix didn't always make good original movies. And even if it's just picking expensive directors and actors to do it. And I think there's a risk that Apple could buy Disney, and that they're buying Disney basically on the way down, meaning Disney's getting out from under, but that Disney's culture, that the Star Wars culture, that the Pixar culture. So I would be much.
Who are you buying? I'm giving you.
I'll buy Nvidia. I'd rather buy Nvidia than or a Tesla.
Really?
I would rather go with a universally. I would rather play the tech shift 2.0, where the world is moving to self-driving AI driven infrastructure or autonomous agents, I think they call them. And I think that the Apple autonomous agent could be quite exciting.
See, this is a fun question because the reason I wouldn't buy Tesla is because I don't think it's cheap relative.
Of course, yeah,
Like
sure.
so
Price is wrong.
that's if you want, the reason that Disney makes more sense to me is because it's cheap relative, relative to where it was, whatever. You can't
Sure.
argue this. And there's lots of stocks that may be a little bit cheap relative. But if you're Apple, I mean, do you buy Netflix, which is maybe a little bit cheap? I don't know, relative, maybe. Um, do you buy like why not just buy the NFL? Why not just go in there for that whole nonprofit and just say, hey, I think it's a nonprofit, and just say, hey, you know what, we'll buy the whole damn NFL. It's not public shares, so it's a little bit of an unfair question. But like I'm not sure, like if I'm Apple, I do something crazy. I make
Do you get bigger in content, which is what you're talking about, or do you get bigger in hardware or tech or some sort of, even like Microsoft, no one talks about, but has had many years now where, I mean, Microsoft is a star and has been a star for some time.
See, if I'm Apple, I don't buy tech because I consider myself to be a tech company and I consider myself to be able to build anything. So if Microsoft can build it, I can build it. And if Nvidia can build it, I can build it. So I don't care about that. I want something that's going to make a splash. I want something that everybody's going to talk about. I want something that's going to change the world. Okay. So
Which
if
is
I
a
buy something,
content deal because content deals always get the most coverage because they're about the people that write, the people that write about it are part of the deal.
all right.
So that's an argument in favor of buying the NFL or Disney or Netflix,
Yeah, exactly.
et cetera.
Exactly. I mean, why do really rich people buy football teams and basketball teams and baseball teams?
For social status and personal entertainment and relevance.
Okay, so then why do CEOs that have $1 trillion in cash buy the same thing? Same exact reason. Social status, relevance, get your nobody wants to buy.
Entertainment.
Yeah, the last company you're ever going to buy is Pfizer. Okay. You're never going to buy, Unilever. Okay, because that's not
Granger.
sexy.
What about Granger? You could buy
Nobody's going to
Granger.
buy Granger. Okay, because it's not freaking sexy. And at that point, you don't care about anything except sex appeal. You don't care anything about PR, and you don't care anything about it's not, it's you have to do something crazy.
And so you like the Apple Disney deal. That's your point. Or you like the
I,
you like the big Apple deal. We'll leave it at that.
yeah, maybe you can buy Greenland.
Even that, who cares?
Exactly. Exactly. That's the whole point.
But
That's
didn't Apple abandon their car? I'm pretty sure that they did. I think they were trying to do an Apple
yeah, I
car.
think they did, but that's for different reasons. Yeah. Yeah. All right. What else you got here?
I got a year-end rally.
A year-end rally.
Yeah. I got a move higher in the next couple months with accelerated positive drift in the fact that the Hamas Israel war didn't end, in honor of Byron Ween, who recently passed away at 90 years old over at Morgan Stanley, although I don't think he's at Morgan Stanley anymore. Disasters have a way of not happening. It was a famous quote of his.
It's a great quote, actually, because I agree with it.
Disasters have a way of not happening.
If it wasn't for the possibility of a disaster, we would not exist in what we do here at Tasty.
In other words, you need the threat of a disaster in order to even have an opportunity.
The threat of a disaster is incredibly powerful. The threat of a disaster is I built I built all whatever wealth, whatever toys,
whatever success you've had is
whatever success I've had. It's all a function of somebody else believing that that risk exists.
In the threat of the disaster.
Yeah, sure.
Are you suggesting, and is Byron Ween suggesting that, in other words, there's a lot that I've never seen so much theoretical disaster.
What does that mean?
Russia, Israel, Hamas, inflation,
Well, you've seen inflation,
I'm
Israel
just saying that
costs.
we've got a good selection of disasters available to threaten us at the moment,
Yeah, I agree.
which I'm suggesting is a positive thing for markets the rest of this year.
Well, because it's known. Anything that's known is positive. The only thing that's scary is the stuff you can't see. That's why they call them no-see-ums. Where you grew up, had no-see-ums. Remember those things?
Sure.
Those little black flies that you can't
Yeah.
see, and then they just chew you to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
The worst. Those are the things that scare me. What doesn't scare me is like if I'm up in the woods somewhere, I'm not worried about a big black bear or a big brown bear for whatever reason, or a cougar or whatever it is. I'm not worried about that. It's those stinking no-see-ums. Anything you can't see, that's what scares you.
You, however, spoke, how do I say it, skeptically when I suggested that we're setting up here for a nice year-end rally.
No, I did not. I'm not skeptical of that. It's very possible. And given the fact that we just had a pretty significant sell-off, I think that the chances of a year-end rally are better than a lot of people think. In fact, I just saw, who was it? I just saw some hedge fund guy just came out and said the exact same thing that you said. Who is that? Was that Stevie Cohn?
I don't know.
I don't usually read Stevie Cohn quotes, but I think he just said the same thing.
What, a year-end
Yeah, yeah. Like,
disasters have a way of not
yeah,
happening?
exactly. All the bad news is out, you know, give me
Israel's done their ground invasion, and
yeah,
Iran still didn't throw a nuclear bomb.
yeah. Let's move forward. Yeah.
Biggest extreme right now, still the dollar for you overall, in your opinion?
Bonds are still the biggest extreme.
The long end
Yeah, exactly.
to go higher.
Yes,
That
exactly.
they're on extreme low.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yields are a little too cheap. I think later this week and next week we're going to see, you know, I mean I've been really late to the party, but if stocks turn, bonds will turn. That's what I think.
Higher bonds will go higher, and yields will
Yeah.
come back in.
Yeah, I think so.
Mm-hmm.
I think there'll be a little sympathy. All right. Well, we're going to wrap up, Dylan. I'm Tom Sosnoff, and he's Dylan Radigan. We cover a lot of topics today. We're all over the place. Um, thank you so much, and we will see you next week.
See you next week.